It is the summer of 1941. Germany is winning, not just winning, dominating. The Wehrmacht has steamrolled through Poland, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark, Norway, Yugoslavia and Greece. In under 2 years, Hitler has conquered more of Europe than Napoleon ever did. The map is almost entirely his. So why does it all collapse? The answer comes down to one decision, one moment. One afternoon in late 1941, when Adolf Hitler overruled his generals, ignored his own military doctrine, and made a choice so catastrophic that historians still argue about it today. You are about to understand exactly what that choice was and why no military genius, no weapon, and no amount of soldiers could undo it. To understand the mistake, you have to understand the plan. Operation Barbarossa, Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union, launched on June 22, 1941. It was the largest military operation in human history. 3 million German soldiers crossed into Soviet territory along a front stretching nearly 3,000 kilometers. The objective was total destruction of the Soviet state before winter arrived. Historian David Stahl, who spent years reconstructing the operational records of Barbarossa, describes the early weeks as almost terrifyingly successful. Soviet forces crumbled, entire armies were encircled and captured. In the first week alone, Germany advanced hundreds of kilometers. By late July, Army Group Center, the central thrust aimed directly at Moscow, was within striking distance of the Soviet capital. The road to Moscow was, by almost every military assessment, open. This is where the decision happens. Hitler's generals, Fedor von Bock, Heinz Guderian, Franz Halder, pushed relentlessly for one thing: continue the advance on Moscow, capture the capital, decapitate the Soviet state psychologically and logistically. Moscow was not just a symbol, it was the nerve center of the Soviet railway network, the industrial hub, the seat of command. Take Moscow, the generals argued, and the Soviet Union would collapse like every other nation had. Hitler said no. He redirected the bulk of Army Group Center's armoured forces, including Guderian's elite Panzer Group, south toward Ukraine. The stated reason was economic. Ukraine held the Soviet Union's breadbasket, its coal, its industrial Donbass region. Hitler believed the war could only be won if Germany seized those resources. The military objective, in his mind, was secondary to the economic one. Guderian flew to Hitler's headquarters personally to argue against the order. The exchange is documented in Guderian's own memoirs. He laid out the case plainly. The window for capturing Moscow was closing. Every week of delay gave the Soviets time to reinforce, reorganize, and prepare defenses. Hitler listened. Then he dismissed every argument and confirmed the order. The Ukrainian campaign, the encirclement at Kiev, was a tactical masterpiece. More than 600,000 Soviet soldiers were captured. It was the largest encirclement in military history. On paper, it looked like a triumph. It was not a triumph, it was a trap that Germany had set for itself. 6 weeks were lost, 6 weeks of summer, of dry roads, of favourable campaigning weather, gone. When the drive toward Moscow finally resumed in October under the name Operation Typhoon, something had changed. The Soviets had used those 6 weeks. Historian Robert Citino, in his analysis of German operational failures, notes that the delay gave Stalin's forces time to erect 3 successive defensive lines around Moscow and to transfer fresh Siberian divisions, troops trained for cold weather combat, to the capital's defense. And then came the mud. In Russia, autumn is not a season, it is a weapon. The Rasputitsa, the Russian word for the twice-yearly period when roads dissolve into impassable mud, arrived in October 1941 with a ferocity the German supply chain had no answer for. Tanks sank, trucks stalled, supply lines stretched hundreds of kilometres back from the front, and the mud swallowed them. German soldiers who had crossed the border in summer uniforms now faced temperatures dropping below -20 Celsius with no winter clothing, because the High Command, following Hitler's certainty that the war would be over before winter, had not issued any. The Soviet defenders did not have this problem. They were home. Military historian John Erickson, in his landmark study of the Eastern Front, describes what happened next as the moment the war's outcome was effectively decided. German forces came within 15 kilometres of Moscow. Soldiers reported being able to see the spires of the Kremlin through field binoculars. And then the advance stopped. Not because of a dramatic battle, because the men and machines were simply spent. Exhausted, frozen, undersupplied, and facing fresh Soviet divisions that had not travelled thousands of kilometres through summer heat and autumn mud. On December 5th, 1941, one day before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor pulled the United States into the war, the Soviet counteroffensive at Moscow began. It pushed German forces back. For the first time in the entire war, the Wehrmacht retreated. Consider what you now know. The decision to divert south was not made in ignorance. Hitler had the maps, he had the generals, he had Guderian standing in front of him saying this is a mistake. He overruled them not because he lacked information, but because he trusted his own instincts above every professional military judgment in his command structure. He believed he understood the war better than the men who had spent their lives studying it. That belief, not the Allied armies, not Soviet numbers, not American industry, though all of those mattered enormously, is what set the ceiling on what Germany could ever achieve. A leader who cannot be corrected cannot course correct, and a war that cannot be course corrected can only be lost. You will make decisions today that your advisors will push back on. You will feel the pull of certainty, the sense that you can see something others cannot. That feeling is not always wrong, but the distance between confidence and catastrophe is thinner than it looks on a map of Europe in the summer of 1941, when everything was going exactly according to plan. The spires of Moscow were visible through the binoculars. They were never captured. And the moment Hitler chose Ukraine over Moscow, the war, though no one knew it yet, was already over.